Simon Belmont is the name. Killing Dracula's my game. I got a big whip in my pocket. Gonna take down these undead. I'm breaking into this castle, but screw these damn Medusa Heads. Oh God, what am I even doing with my life? Happy Halloween, everybody. My name's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another Retro Flashback Plays. So yes, we're going to be doing a playthrough of one of my probably top 10 favorite games on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and definitely one of my favorite in this series for sure. So we're going to be doing a full run-through of Super Castlevania 4. Four Castlevanias. Now, I actually did a sort of normal retro flashback for this as my Halloween thing last year, and I was debating what I wanted to do this year, and I have a little bit more time on my hands right now, and I figured, hey, I haven't played through Super Castlevania 4 in years. I have beaten that game, but not for a long time. And I really wanted to go through it again because, as has already been established in the past on this channel, the original platformer Castlevanias are far and away the best ones and are much better than those dumb, light RPG pain-in-the-ass ones that have come out since. I mean, we all know that, right? It's just common knowledge. So I thought I would go through one of my favorite ones here. This is a very interesting Super Nintendo game. It was basically a launch game, and yet it's very graphically impressive. It makes full use of all the Super Nintendo's capabilities, including some really neat Mode 7 stuff, and it has probably one of the best SNES soundtracks almost period, in my opinion. It is really, really good. And it's kind of weird because apparently canonically, I mean, following the Castlevania canon, who really does that? But apparently Super Castlevania 4 is basically a retelling of the story of the first game from the NES, which is really weird. It's almost like an HD remaster of Castlevania 1, which is so strange given that it was only 4 years after Castlevania 1. But hey, what are you going to do? Castlevania stories, whatever. You're a dude killing Dracula. That's really the point of it. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing through this one. I don't know how long it's going to take. I have beaten the game, but it has been a long time. So this may be more episodes than we think, depending on how badly I suck at this now. So we're going to be playing the Wii U Virtual Console version, which is nice because it just has, you know, a bit better resolution on the visuals, and I can easily do save checkpoints and stuff for when I want to check out between sessions. So that's how we're going to play it. If you own a Wii or a Wii U, it's available on both of those Virtual Console services, and I would dare say that's probably the best way to play it. So I think that's going to be really cool. So yeah, without further ado, let us dive into Super Castlevania 4. Hope you guys had a great Halloween, and hope you enjoy this. And here we are. I've actually really been looking forward to taking a run at this game again. It's been way too long. And it's funny, I've owned this game on the Virtual Console forever, but you think I've taken a run through it? Like I have with 90% of the Virtual Console games I have. It's just, I buy them and then they sit there. Kind of like Steam that way. It's my stupid collector mentality. So we're actually going to let the introduction go through here. It's mostly just a text scroll, but it has a really amazing atmosphere to it, and they create a real sense of horror and dread with the music and the visual background and stuff. Just that deep background bass line just gets into you, you know? D has come too. So like I said, this is just a text scroll. I'm not going to read it out here, but there's not much to it, really. It's basically every 100 years, the forces of good weaken because reasons. Dracula revives himself because reasons. The Belmont family has always dealt with him because reasons. And you are a Belmont, ergo, those are your reasons. So yeah, very interesting thing about this actually, when I was researching this game a little bit, I discovered that someone actually did a graphical comparison between the Japanese and US versions. And interestingly enough, I wonder if this was either a demand for Nintendo or just something that Konami thought was necessary to appeal to a wide US audience. There is actually a bunch of religious iconography in the Japanese version that was removed from the US version. There's a lot of crosses in particular. There's actually a cross on the top of that gravestone that is not in the US version, and there's a number of them within the levels and whatnot, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's a little weird, but Nintendo was rather famous for, shall we say, sanitizing a lot of the games that came out on their system back in the day, and I wonder if they just decided, you know what, Americans aren't going to like that very much, and you should take out all the crosses. It's an interesting thing. Oh, just listen to that music. The soundtrack for this game is so good. Like, doesn't that just make you feel eerie, that music? I must have watched this intro so many times on the Super Nintendo, just letting it loop, just because of thinking about just the atmosphere. Oh, I love that. I really do. It's so good. All right, and this is just demo mode, so let's get this started. So there is passwords in this game. It doesn't have a formal save system, but there are passwords in it. I'm probably just going to use Virtual Console checkpoints. You can remap the buttons, which is nice, and there's a little sound test. Remember sound tests? Man, I mean, hell. Talk about a bygone age. Remember when Konami actually made video games? Boy, that was a time, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, Konami. Now the only things they're doing with Castlevania is god-awful pachinko machines. Cruel. So cruel. Alright. Let's bring it, Simon. So much like the original Castlevania, when you start this game off, you start with a sort of a standard leather whip, which you very, very quickly upgrade to a chain whip and then a longer chain whip. There's also secondary weapons that you can pick up, and the hearts, which are the main thing that you will get out of... this was always really cool, too, I thought. You can actually stay here until it forces you down. Yeah, the hearts that you will pick up from candles are basically your ammunition for your special weapons. Special weapons generally tend to drop in the same places in the game, and it's actually... There are situations where picking up every weapon that drops is not necessarily always your best options. There are ways to sort of min-max the special weapon drops to your advantage. Which is kind of... I always thought was something kind of interesting. The only thing I never got about the whole whip upgrade system is that you upgrade so fast. Like, pretty much the first candle you hit, or usually within the first 2 or 3 candles you hit, will be your first chain whip upgrade. Like, you almost never will actually have to be in a position where you have to use your normal whip, which I always thought was I always thought that was weird that they did it that way. But they did have one interesting addition in this game versus the original one, which is this. It looks kind of dumb, but you can actually take out and flail your whip around, and it's really helpful for getting at certain power-ups or taking out certain enemies before you have to get face-to-face with them, which is really, really neat. You can... the whip does a lot less damage when you're swinging it around like that. It's because you don't have the force of your swing behind it. But as dumb as it looks, to have that sort of limp chain flicking around... Oh, that's interesting. That's like a screen clearing thing. Not that I needed it. But you can use the whip in that way, which will actually come in handy. I'll show you guys kind of how it works here. So I had those daggers. The daggers are okay. They're very, very a very fast and quick weapon. Whoops. You know what helps a lot when you press the right button? This one is really neat because it's sort of a boomerang thing, and that can actually pass through enemies multiple times and do multiple passes of damage, which is really, really nice. You'll use that one a lot. So another staple of Castlevania is there's crap hidden in the walls. Mysterious wall chickens, as they're called. So, yeah, healing items in this game are basically chicken dinners, because that was a staple of a lot of Japanese games, Japanese arcade games in particular. They used to love to have little icons being like, hey, look, here's a full meal for some reason that will actually heal you. And you'll find a lot of those. That's a little invulnerability thing. So you'll find a lot of those things hidden within walls and stuff, along with items that give you double and triple shots of your special weapons. So the ability to... Damn it! I'll stop doing that, I swear. So normally you can only have one of your special weapons on the screen at a time, but if you pick up a double or a triple, you can have 2 or 3 on the screen at the same time, which can be really handy, especially with some of the later bosses. I'm really curious how many times I'm going to have to end up repeating some of these later bosses. There's actually a series that Giant Bomb has been doing where Vinny Caravella has been playing through all the Castlevanias, and he spent an awful long time on Castlevania 3 because the last couple of levels of that game are utterly friggin' stupid. They are so mean and so unfair. This one is not like that, thankfully. They toned that stupidity back for this one. But I cannot guarantee, and I make no promises, that I will not have to kill way too many bosses way too many times over. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll get lucky. This only could be a couple episodes, or it could be a bazillion episodes. We'll see. So there's a double shot. So because of that, now I can shoot 2 knives at once. Like I said, really handy against certain enemies, and in particular bosses. Oh, you douche skeleton? I normally don't do that. Getting around those stairs is a little weird sometimes. You have to kind of either jump over them or scooch by them if you're trying to get up them, which is a little strange. And as usual, like the most of the original arcade Castlevania games, there is a scoring system in this that you can see goes up to some stupidly high amount that I'm pretty sure they put that in either just to make the UI uniform or as a joke, because I don't think anybody... I don't even know if it's possible to get your score as high as it says you can, or if anybody actually has. There's no high score system in this game anyway, so it's really only for comparing scores with your friends by sort of writing them down, or for rewarding extra lives. So at certain point milestones, the game will just hand out a spare life, which will come in handy. Don't get me wrong, it will really come in handy at certain points. And that's why you'll see these money bags that are handed out from some of the candles and stuff, which are handy for that way. But yeah, these games actually have a... Okay, so that's a clock. So this is really good. So, essential Castlevania enemy that everyone hates, the Medusa Heads. Why? Because they come indefinitely, and they have this really annoying pattern, and they don't always spawn in the same point on the screen. That's what the clock is good for. And they tend to knock you back, and especially in an area like this, where you have those little wood panels in the floor that flip if you jump on them. Yeah. Oh, those bastards. You really can't have a Castlevania game without them, but at the same time, they suck. They really suck, and you'll probably see me cursing them a lot in this series. I would imagine. I try not to swear too much in my normal retro flashbacks, but this game at certain points is probably going to drive me mental, just so you guys know. And I make no guarantee of clean language in this series. Well, we'll see what happens! Well, we're off to a roaring start, aren't we? I normally don't die on the first level of this game. Like, I pretty much know this level by muscle memory. But, yeah. Oh, boy. If anyone's curious, I'm actually playing this with the Wii U Pro controller, not with the gamepad. Not for any particular reason. The gamepad's fine. It's more just that the gamepad doesn't last very long. Its battery's not very good. I'm probably not going to play too long of this game in one session. But, see, that's where your limp whip, as it were, comes into play. Yeah, I probably won't play super long sessions of this. Yeah, here's the first boss. God, I died right there. God, that sucks. So this guy's pretty easy. This is just, you got to take out this guy's bone horse. Of course, though, because I died, I lost all my... that's where this game screws you, too, is I lost all my hearts because when I... Oh, no, you don't. Yeah, so that guy's easy. Yeah, I lost all my hearts when I died, which is the way this game can screw you. So, end of every level. Now, you can normally strike a pose when you do that, which I didn't. But you can... you get that orb, which gets you through here. You get bonus based on time and how many hearts you had left. So, I didn't get nearly as good a bonus as I could have. Which really sucks. So here we are, stage 2. There's 11 stages in this game in total, I believe. You see we got quite a long slog through this second level. Into this second level, the game starts to ramp stuff up already. Some fantastic music in this level, though. This little funky jazz is a good one, but one of my favorite tracks in the whole game, and probably one of my favorite Super Nintendo songs ever, is coming up shortly. Yeah, this section's just kind of annoying. Those purple hands actually are one of the only enemies in the game that doesn't actually hurt you. They just grab you. But they can open you up, obviously, to those spiders. Oh, yeah, the weird tree demon guys. You can get points for killing them, at least, though, so I can maybe try to make up some of my bonus deficit. Because normally, early on in this level is when you'll hit 20,000 points, which is when you get your first free life. Got some good beats in this game. Now, these little guys, I don't... Okay, you can kill those. I don't think you can kill them when they're in their, like, rolled-up armadillo ball form, but you can kill them like this. So you can see there, I guess I haven't shown you guys this weapon yet. This is just a throwing axe. Does a lot of damage, but it has a weird firing arc, as you saw, so it can be a little fun sometimes to line it up with your enemies. Eye candles. It's just a ton of hearts. I'll take it. This level's challenge is less about the enemies, though there are some of those, and more about the platforming. There are a lot of really tricky jumps in this that can be a little daunting at times. Look at the little mini castle up there. A little tiny mini castle. I don't know what that is. I didn't recognize that until now. Is that like Dracula's guest room or something? You know, when you've been partying with Dracula all night and you need a place to work off your hangover. Hey. This is not cool. So, is this it? No, we're not there yet. The area that has one of my favorite tunes is coming up, as I said. We haven't seen a lot of it yet either, but some of the areas in this game have really bad slowdown as well. Some of them are fairly challenging platforming areas, and you can actually, to some degree, take advantage of it to better line up your jumps, but sometimes it's just plain rough as well. Oh, bugger. That might have been useful. Those frog enemies are a little frustrating, but it's not horrible. So yeah, that water... It's fine. It's fine. No problem. So yeah, those the stuff in this area, this sort of sludge, doesn't actually kill you. You just will sink in it. A lot of the areas where there's water, there's no floor. So if you some of them there is, but a lot of them, if you fall in the water, you're just straight up dead. Here, you just sink and have sort of reduced movement, so you can get your way out of it. Again, we're pretty early, so the game's being relatively kind, as much as these games can get. I kind of like this game because, like I said, they toned it down a little bit. Castlevania 3 was ridiculous. Castlevania 1 was also very hard, especially in the later levels. Like, just to a point where it was clear they wanted to make the game a decent length by just making it stupid hard. And thankfully in this game, this is no slouch, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not the level of punishing that those were. Now, that would have come in handy before, but oh well. Yo, I don't appreciate that. There's also things like these birds and stuff that you got to really pay attention to make sure they don't fade into the background. It can be a little rough. Alright, here we go. There's my extra life. It's kind of an obnoxious, surprising noise when it happens, but it's useful. Pardon me. Alright. So this is another boss, but it's interesting because it's actually a mid-boss. I don't actually remember if Castlevania 1 had mid-bosses or not, but yeah, this is not the end of the level. So you just move on. No orb. This is another interesting area. So you're just going to start to see some slowdown here. So this water is sort of almost like a little treadmill, so you've got to deal with the enemies while the water's moving along. And the water, as you'll see, will actually change direction on you randomly. I don't know what's actually doing that, but it makes things a little tricky when you're going against the grain, and you've got to avoid all these spikes and stuff. Oh, yeah, there's some of that SNES chug. Part of it was just the sheer amount of stuff that this game tries to do at one time, and also because it was a launch game, you know, they hadn't totally figured out the hardware yet, so it's a little bit of, I think this just maybe wasn't as optimized as it could have been. This is one of those games where, like, if you played this in an emulator with the dynamic overclocking feature, it could be kind of nice, but I wonder how it would handle that, given how much this game steps in and out of slow-mo. I feel that could maybe sort of break the responsiveness and the flow of the game a little bit. I wonder, though. Here, I believe, yes. Oh, that's right! I forgot about that! There's a couple of stages in this where you have a boss in the middle and then actually no end boss, and you just move on to the next stage. I completely forgot about that. But, I love this. This is not a particularly hard area, but I'm just gonna shut up for a second. I love this music. This is just such a good song. And I just really like this area. It's like a weird, like, calcium cave kind of thing. I think it's just really, really cool. But as you can see, those enemies that split apart there, they're actually really easy. You can pretty much take out all of them without ever getting attacked. But as you can see, it slows things down a lot when it's got to calculate all those separate copies running around. But yeah, this has really good music, and the next area that follows this, not the next level, but the actual next area that's part of this level also has really good, really foreboding music. Little secret in here. You want candles? You want candles that are suspended in midair in the middle of a calcium cave and still lit somehow? We got them for yous. Don't you worry. You got fat money and chicken and hearts galore. Love it. So, one of the things that they improved in this game as well, to a degree, is the checkpointing. The checkpointing in this game can still be really, really rough, especially in some later levels. Actually, the area... Hey, where'd he go? The area that we're going to after this actually has some fairly tough platforming challenges in it. And if you do not overcome them, I believe you have to do this whole area over again, or at least some of it. Ugh. Which makes things rather interesting. Power-ups in this game also don't stay on the ground very long, so if you're grabbing a heart or a money bag or something like that, you got to be quick about it, picking it up. You only get a couple of seconds before they blink out of existence. Again, later in the game, that can be an issue. I was about to say, well, those don't look dangerous at all, but, yeah. The health and safety here is just completely off the charts terrible. Like, give people hard hats or something, for Christ's sake, Dracula. You have no respect for your employees at all? So yeah, here we go. Like, isn't that just incredible piano for a 16-bit console? And, like, it's so like, this whole song is just so haunting. It just puts just a dread in the pit of your soul. And it's really incredible to me how much incredible musical feats they were able to pull off, not only with just the music chip of a 16-bit console, but, again, in what was essentially a launch game. Like, this is one of the first games Konami put out on the Super Nintendo, and they just, in production value, just hit it out of the park. I remember way back in the day, I actually sent a letter. Remember letters, kids? I bet a lot of you probably don't, with your friggin' text messages and your Snapchats and your friggin' whatever the hell else you kids are into these days. I actually sent a letter to Konami of America back in the 90s. At one point in time, they're not anymore, but Konami was actually, these things you can't kill, you can only stun them. Konami's US headquarters was actually in Illinois at one point in time. I couldn't begin to imagine why, but it was. I think they're in California now. And I actually sent them a letter because I love this music so much, and I was like, hey, is there some way I could get this on CD? Because there was no, there was no digital music back then. There was no MP3s. There was no easy way. Like, now, the soundtracks for all these games are on YouTube. But, or if you really wanted to, you could just rip the sound out very easily using an emulator. I mean, heck, I could do it with this capture software I'm using. But back in the 90s, there was no way to do that. So if you wanted... Damn it. Okay, yeah, if you die, you start back here, but if you have to continue, you go back to the start of that calcium cave. That's right. So yeah, if you wanted a game soundtrack, you basically had to get it in a physical form. And I actually sent a letter to Konami, and I was like, I love this game. I love the soundtrack. Do you guys sell it somewhere? Is there some way I can acquire it? Because game soundtracks are actually a fairly popular thing in Japan. There are a lot of them that... are sold directly in Japan, and a lot of them actually get done with like full orchestras and bands and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of fighting game soundtracks that actually have like full guitars and drums and the whole bit. So I thought maybe they had something like that, and I was like, is there anywhere I could get it, or do you guys sell it? And they actually wrote me back, and they said, this is back when Konami gave a crap about their customers. They actually wrote me back and said, you know what, you're not the first person to ask for that. We're actually looking into it, and if something comes of it, we'll let you know. And I was like, that's awesome, thanks guys. And unfortunately I never heard anything, and I never did hear of a soundtrack coming out for this game. So yeah, I don't think it ever did. But oh, this music is just so good, and some of the songs are actually fairly long too, which is unusual for Super Nintendo as well. So there's another mechanic you saw there, which was me using the whip to sort of swing on those hooks. That was another thing that was introduced in this game. It's a neat platforming mechanic, though it can get really frustrating at times because of the timing of it, and your whip will stay whatever length it was when you attached onto it, so sometimes it'll be too long or too short for you to actually make the jump that you want, and that can prove to be a little dodgy at times. So you can extend it a little bit, but it's very hard to gauge that and figure it out. Hey, only my second try and I made it. Oh, just. Okay, I went all right there. I'm not going to get overconfident. Like, you wouldn't believe when I was a kid how many continues it would take me to get past that area. Like, yes. Random things fall from the ceiling here because video game, don't question it. But they always fall in limited amounts, so you can wait them out. Oh yeah, the eyes that have fire tears. So, sorry if you hear some crunching. My dog has decided to snack on his bone while I play. He always does this when I sit down to record. I don't know why. Like, you do it just to troll me, Riley? I don't know, man. It's funny. Oh, well, I can't complain. He's a pretty awesome dog otherwise, so... Okay. So yeah, this gets even weirder because, as you can see, you're trying to swing through waterfalls as well. Oh yeah, and those twits show up. Best to just avoid these if you can. Best to just avoid these if you can. Okay. Now this is Castlevania. Yeah. Castlevania games were very well made, but they were also cheap as hell sometimes. There are many a time in this game when you will die and go, come on, really? That shouldn't have happened. That will happen a lot in these games. Again, less in this one than other ones, but... Like, I gotta give credit to Vinny Caravella. Like, I am unquestionably better at old school platformers like this than he is, but I gotta give him mad props for actually getting through Castlevania 3, because I never would have. If I was playing that like he is, I would have broken half a dozen controllers and probably ended up in an asylum at the end of it. Like, it's... I have to give him mad props for that, for getting through that game. Castlevania 3, the last couple of levels of that game are hot garbage. They are so cheap and unfair. You'd swear they were from an arcade game that was designed to suck money out of people. Like, that's how just mean and cheap and just ridiculous they are. See, like, some of the cool stuff, like, even that water effect, like, that's really neat. See, sometimes you just gotta wait it out because these guys disappear. I forgot that this area had its cool, like, flute jazz in it. This is another area that had some really cool music. Okay, I'm doing alright. And I still got a life left after this. Yes, these guys. Oh, what? Come on. Oh, that screen clear power-up's gone. Oh, well. Those screen clear things are never really that useful because when you get them, it always tends to be in a... When you get those screen clearing power-ups, they always tend to drop when there's not a lot on the screen. And if it is, it's only like one or two relatively low-end enemies. I pressed the jump button there. Just so everyone's aware, I pressed that jump button. I don't know why it didn't jump, but... Yeah. I forget the ratios at which this game hands out extra lives. I know it hands out... Yeah! That was actually kind of cool there. This game does hand out extra lives at 20,000 points, but it didn't give me another one at 40,000, so I wonder if it's like 50,000. It did it again. It didn't jump. And you know what? I can't get up there now. I don't think. I think I'm boned. And if it was 50,000 points, I am right there. Yep, this is an old school platformer, alright. Alright, guys, well, I think that's where I'm going to call this first episode anyway, because we got the intro and stuff, so we're at about half an hour, so that's pretty good. So, yeah, that's a good little start, though. I actually got pretty far considering it was just my first life. I'm pretty happy about that. So, yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. If you like what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It does help me out a great deal. And, well, I'll see you guys for some more spooks and scares next time. Take her easy.